Welcome in to Last Call, and it is our last football season, college football Saturday of the regular season. We'll be back next weekend for conference championships. And of course, we're going to be taking you guys all the way through college basketball season, which is why we have Adam Trigger bat and cleanup today, talk some college basketball. So if you guys have a college basketball question, drop it in the chat. I do apologize. No Art DeCesar today at the Westgate Superbook. They were a little short-handed this college football Saturday, but he sent me an exhaustive list of needs. Of course, we got VR, the Greek gambler. He's coming on before his steam room that starts here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, 12 Eastern, guys. And that steam room today is free to anyone who wants to join. It starts at noon, 12 Eastern to 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So 2.5 hours, he's going to take you guys through these early college football games where he's going to answer every single one of your questions. Then, of course, we got Ralph Michaels coming in with some TNA, taking your college football questions. So if you guys have a question regarding something at the Westgate Superbook, you guys have a question for VR, you want to know more about the steam room, you want to talk to Ralph, or of course, you have a college basketball question for Adam Trigger, drop it in the chat because your participation is 110% necessary. That's what makes this show run. So give us a like so that VR will give us some of that gold. Hit that subscribe button so you guys do not miss out on the free opportunity there in the steam room right after this show is finished. And I'm going to get right into these needs. And the text I got, a huge text I got from Art DeCesar. Cincinnati plus 3.5 was sharp. Northern Illinois minus 12.5. The Michigan under went from 43.5, now 42, and they bet Air Force minus 5, which is now 6. A couple of things I didn't like to hear, some of the public bets of the day. Notre Dame, that's okay, I'm on USC. Pittsburgh, I joined Marco on this one earlier in the week. Syracuse, also a little public this morning. And of course, Oklahoma taking on LSU, coming off that big win over Alabama. I like Oklahoma as well. Some of the bigger needs for this morning, Clemson, he said was going to be a big need versus South Carolina. They laid 2.5 with Clemson. They're taking 3 with South Carolina, but they said they need Clemson on the money line. So we'll see how that one ends up playing out. Michigan, Ohio State, they will need Ohio State small, as well as Virginia Tech, Charlotte, Michigan State, San Diego State, Rice, LSU, SMU, USC, and Penn State. That is what I've got so far. He did say Iron Bowl's pretty split, so nothing to report there on Alabama and Auburn. Texas A&M also pretty split, but they did see sharp money at under 50. Keep an eye on that because it's now sitting at 49. Well, one of the favorite things I like about this show is getting a look from behind the sportsbook counter, and then we get a look behind the sports bettors laptop screen. So we're going to bring in VR. He's got about 51 minutes until his steam room starts. So if you guys have a question for him, drop it in the chat. VR, welcome in. Good morning. I know you're getting busy over there waiting for the steam room, but give the guys here on this show a preview what they can get every single week on the steam room with you, and also let everybody know why you're giving away for free today.
Absolutely. This is the perfect day. No MMA, but there's a ton of college basketball and college football, which is front and taking a center stage, that's for sure. And I wanted to make sure I did it other than Sunday, because each Sunday we have a steam room. We go over each and every NFL game, talk about team totals, props, all the extra stuff that I just can't even share with subscribers because it's so time sensitive. But I wanted to do it today, Saturday, because of so much live information that comes in that I'm just not able, again, to use because it's time sensitive. But by doing it live at 12 p.m. Eastern today, I'll be in there a little earlier, so jump in early because those games kick off at noon. Probably stay for an hour and a half or two, and going to cover as much college football, as much college basketball as possible, answer any questions they have, go over what I think is the best money management systems you can use to keep your risk of ruin very low. And honestly, it's just a good spot to hang out and absorb as much information as possible. Ask any questions you have. I work for the bettor during that time. I work for my subscribers. So I want to be there and make sure that I'm also there for them, not just to give them information and picks, but to be there to help guide them through the ups and the downs that come with being a Plus TV sports bettor. Because as I said, I've won 8 of the last 9 years. I've documented them multiple places. But even during the most profitable years, Kelly, I've had some horrific runs. And if you're going to turn a profit, you're going to have to be able to overcome those horrific runs or you'll never get there. Losing is the one thing that stops most sports bettors from ever becoming winning sports bettors. And it's like, wait, of course, that's what losing stops you from being a winning bettor. No, knowing how to lose, because we're all going to lose. Even the most profitable sports bettors are going to lose. They're going to have losing days, losing weeks, losing months, and even losing years. And if you're not built to work all year and not turn a profit, then you may want to approach it from a more entertainment side. But if you are built for it, this market will reward you for your patience like every other market does. It's like anything, Kel. If you bought Google 10 years ago and you held on, you made a ton of money. Amazon, you made a ton of money. Tesla, you made a ton of money. Bitcoin, you made a ton of money. It's just like with sports betting. If you have plus EV information, you will make a ton of money. But can you hold over those up and down periods like you saw with Amazon, like you saw with Tesla? Those are companies that at one point or another, you saw their value drop 50, 60, 80, 90%. It depreciated. Are you still willing to hold? Or do you have that conviction to hold? And I think that patience is what stops most, even those with the ability to win, from actually winning, not having the patience. When everything goes right, Kel, we know what to do. But when things start going wrong, that's when you're tested. Are you going to overbet? Are you going to bet when you don't even have an edge? Are you going to chase? Those are the temptations that we get tested with each and every day, myself included. And that's why not to go long. Something like the Steam Room is so important because we could meet there every week. We could go over results. I could be accountable to those that put their trust in me and actually pay me for my work. And I have to go in there and face them week in and week out, whether I won or whether I lost, and go over those results, go over the long-term plan, and again, be there for them throughout this whole journey. And I live for it. I love it. So I really thank WagerTalk for putting that together for me.
Yeah, it's been great. And honestly, VR, you nailed it. That's why I don't play poker. I don't have the patience. I can't sit there and I either need to be all in or all out. Like I want action on a game or it's not on my television. And so I've just learned to go do something else. If I don't have any bets on the early games, go to the beach, go enjoy yourself. You don't need to sit there and watch games that don't matter. Okay, let's get into some of these questions from the chat for you. And we get 100 likes. We're going to get VR to share some of that college basketball gold. VR, Baylor and Kansas line looking funny to you. Actually, right before we came on VR, I told our producer Joe, I said, here comes the Baylor steam. Baylor went to a pick 'em now. Baylor -1 at some spots. What are you seeing on your end here? Kansas has obviously been on an absolute tear through the Big 12 since their bye week, upsetting a couple top 25 teams. What do you think here?
Here's what I can tell you. One of the bots that I work with, I don't even know who's behind it, but they bet late. And what they do is they come in and they even bet some of the steam moves that have already moved. And at first I'm like, wait, this has to be negative EV. What are they doing? But as I've looked at the long-term results, they're profitable. So I'm like, wait, they're betting the second and third numbers sometimes. They're not even trying to get out ahead and beat me to these numbers. But they seem to be locating those games that even if the line moved, that there's still EV, that there's still value there, and they come in late. And today's a perfect example of that game. I'm so glad you brought it up because early this morning, if you look, I'm pretty sure Kansas was still favored because this bot came in and laid Kansas on the money line at like -112, -115, -118. So it was betting Kansas, even though, like you said, now Kansas is a dog. Usually these bots get out ahead of the market, or even if they bet the second or third number, it almost never moves against them. If they ever do, it's because they're playing the middle or they're doing the scalp. But that's not what this bot's doing. And I'm trying to figure it out. But just because you asked on that game, I can tell you, this bot that's been kicking our ass, betting late stuff, and even with lines not moving with it, continue to win, are on the Kansas side on the money line. Take that as you will. I don't have a bet on the game, but that is stuck out to me a lot because now, like you said, Baylor is the favorite, and these guys, which I would conclude is a bad bet. If you got a money line minus on your ticket with Kansas, that's a bad bet. And yet that's exactly what they tucked in their pocket just a few hours ago. So yeah, I can tell you Kansas is a sharp side, but obviously there's someone out there that disagrees because Baylor's now the favorite again.
All right. Let's take a couple more questions for the chat, VR. What is your take on the big game between Ohio State and Michigan today? Listen, these dogs early have been barking in some of these rivalry spots. Do we think that Michigan is able to pull something together offensively today? I'll be frank with you. I just don't see it.
No. Ohio State's the best team in college football, Kel. I've been saying it all year. I have a future on them. My subscribers have a future on them. I thought when they were at plus 500, it was ridiculous. There wasn't one team better than them on a neutral field, let alone 2 or 3 teams better than them at the time. But the hype was about Oregon. They're undefeated. Oregon. So you were able to get a team like Ohio State that was being overlooked. Every other team was being talked about more or less but Ohio State. That's why they were giving you value. But the cream rises to the top. And although we don't have a 5-game or 7-game series for the cream to really rise to the top in the championship realm, we have a long enough college football season where the cream tends to rise. And that's what Ohio State's done. And I think today they really pull away and crush this Michigan team. And it's a little bad for me because I think the hype will start coming on Ohio State. But fortunately, I got that good ticket already in my pocket. I like Ohio State today. I think they blow Michigan away. I think in the second half, it gets away from them. And Ohio State looks to add on more damage. Trust me, if they're up 3 touchdowns, they want to win by 4. They want to win by 5. They want to win by 6. I think Michigan has trouble putting up more than 10 points on here. I think Ohio State covers this easily.
Talk about the under then, VR. If you think that Michigan has struggles, guess who liked the under last week versus Indiana? And boy, that was not a fun fourth quarter for me. Do you think that sharp money that came in that Art talked about, or sent me a text about, I should say, is authentic, or should we just be staying away at this point?
No, it's legit. Even at 41, Kel, we didn't see no resistance. And usually you do. When it's a low-scoring game, remember, when points are not expected, each point matters more. That's why I like low totals when I'm playing NFL teasers. Because if you're not expecting a lot of points to be scored, then every half point matters. And in a game like this, where every half point matters and you go up from a total of 43 and you drop it down to 41, you're usually going to get some resistance back the other way, under 43, over 41. That hasn't happened here. In fact, when it went to 42 and you saw a little bit of resistance back to 42 and a half, it got hit again. And that's when the limits are bigger later in the week. So it seems like they were trying to get down as much money as possible on this under. It's definitely a legit move. Don't know whether it's going to cash or not, but I think anything under 42, if you could snatch up a 42, I think you're sitting with the sharp money that definitely has been pounding this under and trying to get more and more money. Whenever you see that resistance and then they come back over the top later in the week, that means it's a very, very strong play. Again, doesn't mean it's going to win, but it means there's a lot of conviction there, and they're willing to get more risk down at it when the number moves in their favor. So I love seeing that. I love the under there. Like I said, I like Ohio State. I like Ohio State and under. I think if they could keep Michigan within 10 points, I think they get this cover and keep it close. Again, the total is going to be close, but I think they get there.
All right, guys, if you have a question for VR, we're going to take a little bit more from him before we kick him out and put him over in the Steam Room. If you guys have never checked out the Steam Room, today it is absolutely free on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. You're hanging out with VR for 2.5 hours. That is all of your questions regarding any sport. VR, anything on the Louisville, Kentucky game Guillermo would like to know?
Yeah, let me look. Try to throw up bet numbers, man. I got so much stuff I'm looking at right now. So I'm just trying to even locate that freaking game, the Louisville game. Where are you?
Yeah.
Shout out.
Let me see if I can find you the rotation number here real quick.
There it is. Oh, great. Glad you asked. Because I got down on Louisville earlier in the week. I bet them first half money line for a really sharp group that wanted to get down Louisville. But then today, that same bot that I was talking about came in and swooped up Kentucky +4. They took the 4 on Kentucky. That much I can tell you with certainty. And yet it's going up. Another move that's going against them. Just like I talked about that Kansas move. I keep seeing this happen. Now, we don't have a big enough sample size where I can say, yes, with certainty, there's statistical significance. This bot, even though it's taken some what appears to be bad numbers, is still crushing us. I don't have that big enough of a sample size, but it's getting there. And like I said, it continues to do damage. Usually I would think the opposite. When a game moves off a key number of 3, goes to 3.5, goes to 4, goes to 4.5, I'm probably not going to look to the dog, even though I won't bet the favorite. There's no way. That line's moved too much. You can't bet the favorite. You can only look to the dog. But usually you're going to pass in that spot. Not here. Like I said, they took the 4, even though they could have took 4.5 a little bit later. Those, to me, I just stay away when I see that stuff. I don't even try to figure it out because it's a guessing game. And anytime you're guessing, you're not betting from a position of strength. You want to feel like you're betting from a position of strength. And when you're betting late numbers, when lines are moving against you, when you feel like you're guessing, you're not betting from a position of strength. Let it go. There's another game. There's always another game.
There is always another game. If we get to 800 likes, I'm going to get VR to share some of his college basketball gold. So make sure you guys are hitting that like button.
There goes Kansas. Yeah. Kansas now getting hit 1.5 at the sharper shops. I don't know whether that bot's ahead of the curve or behind the curve. I can't tell yet. But like I said, it laid earlier Kansas, and they could have got +1, but they laid money line negative. And now, though, it is moving in their way. But, yeah, they're on that Kentucky as well, +4.
Just wild to be back and forth on that game. Joe and I talked about it before we started. I said, I don't know who's going to win that game. I think it's very interesting. I don't really trust Baylor, but they're keeping Dave Aranda. Ramsey wants to know, what are your thoughts on Arkansas at Missouri?
All right. I don't have anything sharp on that game, meaning none of the groups I work with bet that game, but here's what I can tell you. Ton of dog money. That's what moves this line. I think it's a lot of the pulp. If any sharps took the points ahead, they got ahead of that 3. It dropped into a key 3. I think that's where you saw some sharp money on Arkansas. But since then, it's been the public betting Arkansas. I think that any value on Arkansas has got to be gone now that it's down to 3. I think it's a favorite or pass situation just based on how that line has moved throughout the week. Not a game I got involved in, but if I have to, just based on the line movement, not a deep handicap, I would look to the Missouri side right now. Like I said, I just think the Arkansas side has left the station. The only problem with that is I'm not high on this Missouri team. They've outperformed the betting market. They're 8-3 straight up. They've covered just about that many games that they won. So it's a stay away game for me. It's definitely a stay away.
All right, let's talk about some of these team totals because you've seen some really sharp team totals. Dustin wants to talk about them. So why don't you run through them? And then if you have anything on Miami, Indiana, or Notre Dame, please include it.
All right, let's look at some of these college football team totals real quickly. Drop down to where we go. Oh, shit, where did they go? Hold on, sorry. Let me just get them all for you guys. All right, perfect. UTSA, Army, nothing there. Drop down to 356, 357. We'll start there. Central Michigan, Northern Illinois. They went under 13.5. Central Michigan, -120, -125. Drop down to Miami, Florida, and Syracuse. Over 28. Even money on the Syracuse side. Down to Marshall, James Madison. Under 24, -120, up to -120 on Marshall. Under 28. Up to -120 on James Madison. I like the under in that game a lot. Appalachian State, another under game where they went under 31 in Georgia Southern, under 30 in Appalachian State. Both good up until -120. Finally, go down to game 4. What is that? 421, 422. Forgive me. Kansas State and Iowa State. They went over 26.5 in the Iowa State -120 and over 24 in Kansas State -120. What sticks out the most, I'll give you one last one, and that's the Nevada UNLV. They went under 17.5 on Nevada and under 36.5 in UNLV. Those are still available. And here's I've noticed. They bet the total on all those games, meaning they went under in the Nevada UNLV game for the entire game. They went over in Kansas State, Iowa State for the entire game. They went under Central Michigan, Western Michigan. They went under in Marshall, James Madison. So once they get enough money down on the total for the game and the line moves too much, that's when they start looking at other ways to get money down. You're going to look at first half totals. You're going to look at team totals. And when you notice that they bet the game total and then both team totals, there's a lot of conviction there. It means they're trying to get down as much money as possible. And this is the time of year that happens because a lot of weather-related bets there are a lot of weather-related bets and a lot of injury-related bets. And as college football bowls come, you got to pay attention to that, because a lot of these guys before the game will say he's not playing, he's elected to, enter the draft, he's not playing. So this is these betting syndicates getting out ahead of all that information, and then when the line moves too significantly, getting more money down because they've been able to confirm their earlier leans. So when I see that early in the week they bet a game under, and then come game day they bet team totals under, that just means they've confirmed their lean from earlier and now trying to get more money down. So pay attention to those team totals, especially when they got bet on the game as well.
VR, just out of curiosity, I just got a text that said South Carolina team total under. Did you guys also just have that bet? Sometimes I wonder if the information that we get is similar, if they're just different groups agreeing. And then also, can you tell me why the local books never let you bet more than a nickel on a team total? Do they know that's where they're vulnerable?
Yes, that's where they're vulnerable, Kel, and that's also where they're going to have trouble attracting some risk. And here's what I mean. If I'm booking NFL and I get a bunch of sharp money on Team A, I know that I could move my line up and I could attract money on Team B. If the betting public doesn't come in and bite, then I know the number I could push it up to get other sharp bettors to bite to help limit some of my risk. On team totals, it's not as easy to do because it's usually a market of sharps versus books. Even though the recreational bettors do bet them on occasion, they do more times than not when it's a primetime game. They'll bet the team total over because they also bet the game over, and they just want more bets because it's a Sunday night game, Thursday night game, Monday night game. But most time when there's 10 games on a Sunday, they're not betting the NFL team totals. When there's 50 college football games, they're not betting the college football team totals. They're betting game props, team props, player props before they're betting those. So it's wise guys versus the books, and that's a fight that the books don't like. Even though they have a built-in edge, a 4.5% edge, where they know they're going to make $4.50 on every 100 that's bet, that's not the case against the wise guys. So they don't like that fight. Again, even though they have a built-in edge, they don't like that fight. So they want to limit it as low as possible. They got to book it because they will get square action as well, but they don't want the risk of too much sharp money because, again, they can't get enough risk on the other side to help balance it. So they end up betting against the betting syndicates. It's book versus betting syndicate. And again, that's not a fair fight long-term.
Perfect. VR, I know you got to get ready for the steam room, guys. 32 minutes. He's going live here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. We just hit 102 likes on YouTube. Ooh. So I'm going to let him give you guys some of his college basketball gold. We'll get him the heck out of here, get some more of these questions answered in college football by Ralph Michaels.
I'm going to give you from my very best account. This is the gold account. Wow. Yeah, here you go. You're going to get it exactly from these guys. I'll get you to the college. We'll just go college basketball. 620, Montana State minus 3.5. 646, Western Kentucky minus 6. 640, under 138.5, Rice. These are the added games. 306, 533, over 165, Prairie View A&M. 309, 051, Tennessee State plus 18.5. 309, 087, over 51.5, Illinois State. And then the 044, under 49, Lehigh Richmond, and also Lehigh plus 11 in that game. So the added games are Lehigh plus 11 and under 49. Wow, that's college football. Forgive me. There you go. Some college football extra, FBS, FCS, whatever the hell that shit's called. But they bet Lehigh plus 11 and under 49, and also over 51.5, Illinois State, Missouri State. And Tennessee State plus 18.5. Holy shit, those are all college football I just gave you. The college basketball was over 165 in Prairie View, over under 138.5 in Rice, Western Kentucky minus 6, Montana State minus 3.5. Those were the college basketball. You got some college football as well. Those FCS, whatever what they're called, those do really well. I only probably give out like 5 over the year to subscribers because the lines move real quickly. But now during the FCS, playoffs, they don't move as significantly. So you'll probably be able to get down on some of these, hopefully. Lehigh plus 11, under 49. Again, they maxed that bet out. Win or lose, just sharing the information. I hope you cash them, don't trash them. Come on over to the steam room. We'll continue going over everything. And as this stuff comes in, again, whether I'm using it for subscribers or not, I'm giving it to you to help you confirm your leans. That's the goal. That's the gold of the steam room. You get everything, not just the premium. So thank you, Kel. I'll be back Sunday. We'll be going over the long teasers, the late NFL stuff, And a lot of good. Hit a 5% the other day. Don't have one yet for tomorrow, but there's still time. So we'll see between now and then whether we do some damage.
Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, VR at Greek_Gambler on all your social channels, except for TikTok at Greek_Gambler7. All right, guys, we got some questions lining up here from Instagram. We're going to get right in there. A couple on TikTok. Just hit my Slack channel as well. Let's get the likes up over there. I'll get to TikTok and Instagram here with Ralph Michaels. Ralph, as you guys know him from TNA on Bet On It. Ralph joining us here on this beautiful Saturday morning. Ralph, give me your unbiased opinion. Ohio State, Michigan. It's kicking off here in 29 minutes.
Well, Kel, I agree with VR. I have Ohio State as my number one team in my power ratings. But the only thing I think is that, yes, Ryan Day has more pressure than any coach on him that has a one loss on him. But if he loses to Michigan, he might be gone. But I actually don't see them extending the lead in the fourth quarter. Listen, if they win this game, they got Oregon on deck in 7 days. So to me, my best bet on Ohio State was under 9.5 for the first quarter. Ohio State has been a slow starter. Michigan has to establish the run. We've seen Ohio State on their first drives want to come out, establish the run. They haven't had great first drives. So under 9.5 first quarter for me.
Ooh, first quarter bet for Ralph Michaels. Let's get to some of these questions, guys. Over on Instagram, Bill Eldred wants to know your thoughts on Texas A&M. Ralph, I took A&M plus 5.5 early in the week, which asterisk, I have A&M under their season win total. So I really would love this to be like a 3-point game. Like Texas kicks a game-winning field goal, all is well in the world, but I think this A&M team has kind of started to finally come to fruition, at least as far as an offensive side of things goes. This team has kind of been on a weird roller coaster all season long, but I do have faith in Mike Elko in the long term. You know what I don't have faith in? Steve Sarkisian, and he has been awful as a road favorite. So I'm fading him in that scenario, but break down this one for me.
Kelly, I want to go back to what you said about having a season-long win total and the game. Folks, one thing you have to do is when you bet a season-long win total or a season prop, you put that in your dictionary, close it, keep that ticket, and don't let it affect the way you're betting. To try to root for a season-long prop and change a bet in week 12 is the wrong thing to do. So, I think that's the number one key for people to remember. We did this on the WagerTalk college football show that we recorded Wednesday. We talked about this game. And I'll say this is one of those rare games that I went back and forth. I can tell you that Brian Leonard and I both lean Texas. I can tell you that Jesse Shule leaned Texas A&M. And, while Texas A&M, you can say, yes, their offense has been great. We got to remember the 565 yards they had 2 weeks ago against New Mexico State. They still only had 38 points. Now, it was a very impressive situation at Auburn, scoring 41 points and putting up 464 yards in that 2-point loss. But to me, the Texas defense is legit. They have held 5 opponents to a season low, and on the season, they are number 2 in the country, holding opponents to 136 yards per game, less than they averaged in their other games. I lean Texas, slight lean, and I do lean under as well.
All right, let's take some more questions here. We've got one from TikTok. Eric G wants to know thoughts on UTSA Army. Ralph, you do bet on it with me, so you know that I am on the Road Runners. Cappy Corner also wants to know about this game. Look, I think ultimately, congratulations to Army on not playing anybody. Congratulations on going undefeated until you stepped in front of that run defense that was Notre Dame. Well, now you're also going to step in front of a run defense. It's also pretty solid in the Road Runners here. Do you ever play on, like Marco talks about on the show, like those bubble burst games or those like heartbreaker games, or you just got your flat out ass kicked last Saturday and now you come out flat this week?
Well, I have a system, Cal. This doesn't apply to this game, but it's something that you just talked about. So let me throw a TNA in here talking about the Hawaii game, but it talks about teams that got their ass kicked. If you are off a loss as an away favorite of 34 points or more, like Hawaii was, that's it. You're off a loss as an away favorite. You lost the game by 34 points or more. There's no other parameters. This goes back to 1998. Those teams like Hawaii this week are 69.8%. So there are times when you can have a bubble burst and it affects you. And there are times when you were embarrassed and those teams bounce back. The one thing that remembers this, listen, we were talking about Army and it is their first loss, but they still have a great season. I don't think they thought themselves as a national championship. But even though they had the 233 yards, you said that it was against one of the best defenses they faced. Am I concerned about the 255 yards they had against Air Force? No. Air Force plays basically the same option. These kids face the option every day in practice. There's only one way I'd go when this is over. I'm not concerned at the recent funk in the Army offense. They're going to revert back to what they did, scoring 49 against Tulsa, 44 against UTSA, against UAB. And this UTSA team is dynamic on offense. They're the number one pace team as far as plays per game. 44 points against Memphis, 48 against North Texas, 51 against Temple. They've averaged 541 yards per game the last four. Give me the over in this one.
All right, Ralph, can you let everybody know what they can expect if they buy one of your premium packages over at WagerTalk.com?
Absolutely. Again, the Thanksgiving special is still valid. I did have a horrible football week last week. I apologize to that. And I just want to leave people with one thing, Kelly. As we're into this Week 12 situation, the final game of the regular season, people often say, this team has 5 wins. They are motivated to get to a 6th win, to get to a bowl. Well, let me share this with you. Teams that are 5-6, that are home dogs, since 2010 have only covered 41.2%. When you have pressure on you and from your home fans and you're a home dog, that pressure has not been positive against the spread. That says to fade Cincinnati and ULM. But teams that have 5 wins and 6 losses and are a road dog have gone 69% against the spread since 2010. Oregon State covered in that role last night. The 2 teams today, NC State and Auburn, are in that 69% situation. And follow me on Twitter at KelSportsLV.
All right, guys, if you are looking for some more TNA, Ralph does his TNA over on his social media channel, as you mentioned, his social media pages at KelSportsLV, like he just mentioned. Ralph, what do you like in USC Notre Dame? And then he wants to also talk about Kansas State, Iowa State.
Yeah, I am on USC here. You want to talk about somebody who hasn't played anyone. Well, that's Notre Dame. So I look at USC and This is not a play that was anywhere near making my card, but USC needed a late touchdown to get to UCLA, but they got it done. They beat Nebraska at 8 by home. They had a 130-yard edge. I look at them at the last 4 weeks, and yes, they lost on the road to Washington, but you have to remember that was not a legitimate loss. In that Washington game, they had a 459 to 375-yard edge, and they were minus 3 turnovers. Listen, in college football, if you're minus 3 turnovers, over 90% of those teams are going to lose. And again, Notre Dame, am I excited? Well, let's see the last 4 games. Navy, huge favorite. Florida State, huge favorite. Or Virginia, huge favorite. Army, huge favorite. And let's remember this. They've only played 2 true road games, and they haven't played a true road game since Purdue, game number 3 back on the season. They now have to face a rival crowd for the first time. I do think USC keeps it close.
All right, let's talk about my Kansas State Wildcats here, Ralph. I'll let you break it down because I don't want anybody to think that I'm being biased here. But this is an interesting kind of where the rubber meets the road with K-State, right? They're already hearing rumors about some guys in the transfer portal next year. Maybe those guys are leaving, maybe they aren't. I always kind of find these types of dramatic things on social media to always be very interesting and usually very overblown. It sounds like DJ Giddens is going to be back for next season. And of course, Avery Johnson. This is an offense that has sputtered at times. And that does concern me. But I did end up playing K-State here in the rivalry game, plus 2.5 earlier in the week. When you and I were talking about college football games back in July, You said, hey, Kelly, I make Iowa State -1. I said, okay. I looked at it. I made it a little closer to a pick 'em. I thought there was some value here on the Wildcats who, well, played a couple really crappy games this year, most notably against Houston and Arizona State. But they had a nice bounce back last week. This is a game last year they lost at home in the snow in absolute and utter terrible conditions. Talk to me about this game in Ames, my least favorite team, or my least favorite place to play in college football.
Well, let me say this, Kel. You look at these two teams, and they have 5 losses between them, but they have only been outgained by 1 opponent each. Iowa State, despite their 2 losses, the only game they got outgained was on the road at Kansas. You look at Kansas State, the only game they got outgained on the season was that Tulane game back in week number 2 where the defense just fell apart and they allowed the Green Wave 491 yards. They still won the game. But I look at Kansas State, and if they play clean, they are by far the better game. Why do I mean that? Well, on the season, they are +1 turnover. But the BYU loss, they were -3 turnovers. The Houston loss, they were -1 turnover. The Arizona State loss, they were -2 turnovers. So I do lean Kansas State. I think they can get there. The last 2 weeks, though, again, the last 3 weeks, they've had 2 games, negative turnovers. Against Cincinnati, they did win the turnover battle. I lean Kansas State, but the issues on the road they had with those turnovers caused me to just leave it alone. But I'm with you. I think the purple prevails.
All right, a couple more minutes here with Ralph, then we'll get to Adam Trigger with college basketball. In case you guys didn't know, Last Call used to be a college basketball show. Now it's a college football show, so we're going to start transitioning here and taking all your questions. David wants to know, is Vandy +10 a trap? Seeing a lot of trends on it and nothing for Tennessee. Ralph, I'm on Vanderbilt. Of course I am, looking for those barking dogs each and every week. Let's talk about Tennessee and how they started off the season red hot against a bunch of non-conference nobodies, if you will. And now that they're playing SEC conference time, all of a sudden that offense has started to sputter. But I will say this, that defense is damn good. And if they win that football game, I believe that will be the reason why.
It is. Let me just start with one of the most basic things, Kel. Week 12, obviously rivalry week, and that may change some. I mean, yeah, I think Ohio State, Michigan will stay week 12. I think Auburn, Alabama will. I think, the South Carolinas and Clemson's will. But how about this, Ms. Dog, Kelly Stewart? In game 12, so we're talking the final game of the regular season, if you lost to your opponent last year, and now you're a conference dog up to +12, so you're a single-digit dog or a small double-digit dog, if you blindly played every dog in that situation, you have covered 61.4% since 2016. That includes Vanderbilt, Massachusetts, Wake Forest, Kansas. Again, they went dog favorite. ULM, UTSA, Temple, Eastern Michigan, Coastal Carolina, and Rice. Again, we're not blindly going to play those. But I do agree with you. And yes, this is a low total, Cal, but you talked about that Tennessee defense. And, it got so overlooked because of the offense early in the year. But they've held 5 opponents to a season low. And when you have a team that only allows 2.8 yards per game rushing, that is where you're a positive. Now, they haven't played many mobile quarterbacks, and we'll see what that pans out. But to me, Vanderbilt's going to slow the pace. Tennessee has slowed the pace. They only played 68 plays on offense last week. And even in the Georgia game, when they were way behind, they only got to 72, and that's when they had to try to keep up the pace. Give me the under in this rivalry.
All right. He is Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV. He's got an Ohio State game to go watch, so we're going to kick him out of here. We got 15 minutes until kickoff, but we're going to go over some college basketball. As you guys heard earlier, VR gave us some of the college basketball gold. We're going to bring Adam Trigger on for a few minutes. Adam, there is a game you wanted to talk about, which I have a feeling is going to put everybody to sleep. Why are we talking about Northeastern versus Vermont right off the top here?
Well, Kelly, first of all, that's how you beat college basketball. I'm sorry, you're probably not going to beat college hoop in November and December betting on Creighton, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Rutgers. Like that's just, you're just not. And the small, there's edges there that go unnoticed by the books. Kelly, if I or if you go back to before the season, I did a bunch of previews for WagerTalk. And even in that first week leading up to the season, I pointed out two teams. I said, you could probably blindly bet against Colgate and Vermont this year and do okay based on where they are in the market, because they've been so good for so long, and the fact that I don't think those two teams have the teams they've had in years past. If you just did that, if you just faded Colgate and Vermont so far, Colgate 2-4 against the spread, Vermont 1-6. You're 10-3 against the spread just on those two teams. They both played today. I didn't love the Colgate line today. I bet against Colgate yesterday, got a win. But here, Northeastern makes a lot of sense. So Northeastern's a team we did a preview on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. You can go back and find that. It's still up. And I talked about how much I like this Northeastern team coming into the season. Now, a couple things happened to them that caused me to pump the brakes a little bit. Jared Turner leaves the program right before the season starts. And Masai Troutman started the year with an injury. So he's what I considered, other than Turner, he's what I considered to be Northeastern's best player. Northeastern has been outstanding, even in spite of not having those two guys. They beat Boston U, they beat Harvard, beat Central Connecticut State, all by margin, cover against a very good Princeton team in a game they had a chance. They were down 1 with a couple of seconds left, and all without their two best players. Masai Troutman comes back on the MTE they played last week, and they went 2-1. They beat Florida International. They won and covered against Florida Gulf Coast, and then they lost to a good Cal Bakersfield team. Troutman, in my opinion, the most important person on the Northeastern roster. He played 30 minutes in that game against Bakersfield. I think he's sort of fully back. If you look, the first two games, he didn't play his full minutes, was just kind of easing his way back in. And it really just goes to wanting to.
It would appear we lost Adam Trigger. You guys, you know what that means? He likes Northeastern. That means that the bell rang, Adam. That you talked about too many teams too long. Let's go over a couple of these top 25 matchups really quick, Adam. Before kickoff of college football, I know that you do not beat college basketball by betting these matchups, but this is what people want to watch. This is what they want to bet. And I appreciate you digging deep and looking for some other games. So let's hit on Oregon, Alabama, 9:30 tonight. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to break down this game. Then we're getting the hell out of here. Alabama currently a 6.5 point favorite, total 165.5 on the WagerTalk odds screen. This Alabama team has been, well, I shouldn't say a surprise, right? 6-1 on the season, but more so, I think Nate Oates might have his championship caliber team. That's a really early, hard and fast, definitive comment. So take it with a grain of salt. But I think they look very well rounded. And albeit I haven't watched much college basketball this season. So give me your synopsis on this top 25 game and maybe on Alabama basketball.
Yeah, so I don't know how I got cut off there, but my bet there was Northeastern plus 4.5, if that wasn't clear. That's a game I think you should bet today. This is, like you said, Kelly, this is probably a better game to watch than to bet. My initial, just my main opinion here, I do think this line is probably a little bit inflated. Minus 6.5 for Alabama. I think Alabama is very good. You mentioned Nate Oates. He's he was coaching up here in the Northeast before he was at Alabama, at Buffalo for all those years. He's a guy that I've always really appreciated, that he sticks to his style, where it's get to the rim, shoot a three, bunch of athletes. And I typically like the way Alabama plays. But in this case, I think this line is very inflated. I just pulled up my numbers here. I made this Alabama minus 3.5. So to see it up in the 6.5 range on a neutral floor out in Nevada, if this was down in Tuscaloosa, I guess I could understand the 6.5. But on a neutral, especially a neutral on the West Coast, where Oregon fans tend to travel usually to Vegas. I mean, you would know that better than me, but I think Oregon tends to travel to Vegas okay for their sports. This feels a little bit inflated. So I'm trying to find the exact line. It might be down to 6, but I think there's some value on the Ducks here, just from a numbers perspective.
All right, guys, if you have a question real quick, I'll give Adam Trigger 5 more minutes. Hey, Adam Trigger, how about Harvard? Team total over 59.5, or St. John's team total over 84.5. The over is 144. I like the over too.
Yeah, this is a great question, Kylie. I think just to specifically answer your question on the team totals, you're going to get a juiced team total when it comes to St. John's. You're not going to get one when it comes to Harvard. So of the better of those two team totals, without a question, is the Harvard one. Harvard just got Louis Lesmond back the other day. He missed the first month of the season, was the best returning player from last year's Harvard team. I think he's very, very important to Harvard. They really struggled. I got to see this team play down at Navy like the first week of the season. They really struggled without him there. And they have a player by the name of Robert Hinton, who is going to be one of the better players in the Ivy League this year. So to bring Lesmond back in, I'm not sure where I'm at on Harvard as a team. I know they're catching a huge number in this game. Didn't really consider that as an option today. But to answer your question, the better of those two team totals is that Harvard team total over, because Lesmond is a big part of their offense that they didn't have the first month of the season.
Awesome. A couple more questions here from our audience. If you guys have it, drop it in the chat. If not, I'm telling Adam Trigger, I got to go bet some of these late breaking college. Okay, here we go. Alabama versus Oregon over 164 is the better play to make. You didn't really touch on the total here, Adam, but obviously small sample size, right? Some of these teams have played 5, 6, 7 games so far. Some of these neutral court site games where the lines are a little off, right? You and I were at the Baja Mar tournament. We saw it last year. In the first round of the games, there was a lot of clanks. This one is going to be interesting. It's played at T-Mobile, where the sightlines aren't bad, but it's still something you have to get used to. Are you wary of playing overs in those types of scenarios?
Not at a place like T-Mobile. Like, I think you really need to know your venue. T-Mobile, in my opinion, it plays probably more like an NBA arena. So I wouldn't worry about like the arena causing, mischief. Like we had that stretch, right, where like we were throwing Sweet 16 games into the end zone of a football stadium. That type of stuff is going to affect shot making, not playing in an arena like T-Mobile in Vegas. Just to go back to regarding the over, Alabama, Evan Maya makes true tempo rank for Bama number 2 in the country. I think it's more likely that Oregon plays Alabama's game here. So if you want to look at an over, that probably makes some sense, Kelly. I try to stay in my lane when it comes to like handicapping. I've never been great with totals, so I don't really love to give matter-of-fact answers on totals. But I guess when I handicap the game, I think it's more likely that Bama controls the tempo. And if Bama controls the tempo, it's probably going to be a little bit faster than Oregon would typically play, which kind of tilts me to the over there.
All right, guys, about 90 seconds before we get out of here and get on to college football season. If you have not already given us a like or click the subscribe button, please do so. We appreciate all of you. Adam Trigger, I will let you have the last word.
Yeah, I know people don't want to hear about the small games, but I know they like free best bet. So I'm just going to I have a big card today up at WagerTalk. I'm 5-0 on 5% plays this month. I've got another one tonight in college football. 3 college football plays, 2 basketball plays. The Thanksgiving special is still up. You get all of them. I'm just going to give you both of my college basketball plays that I've got up right now. I already gave you Northeastern plus 4.5. The other one is Rider plus 1. Basically, Rider hasn't played a home game yet this season. They've played a kind of a brutal schedule for a team from the MAC. 7 road games to start the year, but they've won 4 of them, which is extremely impressive. It's 4 true road wins, I believe, are the most in the nation at this point for any school. And that's Rider. Little Rider from New Jersey has that distinction. I've been watching MAC basketball for years, watching Siena basketball for years. This is always one of the toughest trips in the league. They tend to get a great turnout at home. And Delaware is kind of a name program, at least here in the Northeast. They lost quite a bit from last year. I'm not as high on Delaware as I've been in years past. Still very well coached, but their guards don't handle the ball particularly well, and they're coming off of a big win on a neutral floor last week. So I think this is the perfect spot to go against Delaware and a great spot to back Rider in what will be their first home game of the season. You want to talk about an actual home court advantage? Alumni Gym in Lawrenceville, New Jersey has a pretty good home court advantage for small schools in the Northeast. I think the wrong team is favored, so I played Rider plus 1, 4% college basketball play for me.
Wrong team favored. You'll hear that quote all the time on the WagerTalk College Basketball Show, where you can catch Adam Trigger, Joe Ranieri, and of course, all of our other college basketball handicappers. We're also going to be transitioning, if I can say that, into a college basketball show here over the next few weeks. So we hope you guys join us, because we wouldn't be doing this without you, your participation, your questions, your likes, your subscribes. We love you guys. We hope you have a very profitable Saturday. This has been Wager Talk's last call. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning, noon Eastern, at 9 a.m. Pacific, star-studded lineup. Myself, VR, Steve Merrill, Carmine Bianco. It's going to be a great Sunday, and we'll see you guys then.